Okay, we need to talk. We need to have a serious conversation about Silicon Valley's recent obsession with trying to take away our screens. I don't know who started this, but somewhere in a glass conference room in San Francisco, a bunch of tech billionaires decided that looking at a smartphone is the root of all evil. They looked at us, happily scrolling through TikTok, texting our friends, looking at memes, and said, "No, this is bad. We need to save them from the tyranny of the glowing rectangle." And what was their solution? What was the brilliant alternative to the most useful device ever invented in human history? Their solution was to make us walk around talking to ourselves like crazy people. Welcome to the era of the AI wearable, or as I like to call it, the great AI scam of the mid-2020s. For the last 2 years, we have been bombarded with hype trailers. You know the ones. Minimalist music, slow-motion shots of people wearing weird pins or holding orange squares, looking deeply into the distance. They promised us a future where we didn't need apps. We didn't need screens. We would just have a natural conversation with an AI agent that lives on our chest. They called it the smartphone killer. They said the iPhone was dead. They said we were entering the ambient computing era. But let's pause for a second and think about the actual concept here. The core idea is that voice is better than text. That speaking out loud is better than tapping a screen. Have these people ever been in public? Have they ever been on a subway? Have they ever been in a library? The last thing I want to do when I'm checking my bank balance or looking up a weird medical symptom is announce it to the entire coffee shop. Hey AI, does this rash look infected? Who asked for this? Nobody. Absolutely nobody looked at their iPhone 15 Pro Max, a supercomputer that fits in a pocket, takes professional photos, and holds the entire knowledge of mankind, and thought, you know what I hate? The screen. I wish I had to shout at a pin on my shirt and hope it understands me. It was a solution looking for a problem. It was arrogance. It was tech companies thinking they could force a behavior shift just because they raised $100 million in venture capital. But the problem wasn't just the concept. The problem was that the products they actually sold us were absolute garbage. They weren't just bad ideas. They were broken, unfinished, expensive lies. Let's start with the biggest offender, the king of the flops, the Humane AI Pin. Do you remember the hype for this thing? Two ex-Apple executives started a company, raised $230 million, and acted like they were holding the 10 Commandments. They did a TED Talk. They wore all black. They had a mysterious laser display. They acted like they were gifting humanity with fire. And then, they announced the price. $699. $700 for a lapel pin. But wait, it gets better. You couldn't just buy it. You had to pay a mandatory $24 per month subscription just to keep it turned on. If you stopped paying, your $700 pin became a literal paperweight. So, what did you get for nearly $1,000 in your first year? You got a device that didn't work. Let's talk about the laser ink display. This was their big selling point. We don't have a screen, they said. We project the interface onto your hand. It sounded sci-fi. It looked cool in the trailer, but in reality, it was a disaster. It turns out, projecting green light onto a human hand in broad daylight is a terrible idea. You couldn't see anything. If the sun was out, which, you know, happens during the day, the display was invisible. You're standing there, squinting at your palm, waving your hand around like a wizard who lost his powers, trying to skip a song. And the voice assistant, it was slow, painfully slow. You would ask it, "What's the weather?" And then you would stand there, and stand there, and stand there. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. By the time it answered, you could have pulled out your phone, checked the weather, texted your mom, and ordered a pizza. But the cherry on top, the thing was a fire hazard. The battery was magnetic and clipped onto the inside of your shirt, which was actually a cool idea, until people realized the device got incredibly hot. It was literally cooking the skin on their chests. Reviewers were saying it was uncomfortable to wear after 10 minutes. It was slow, it was hot, it was invisible in the sun, and it cost $700. MKBHD, the nicest guy in tech, literally titled his review, "The worst product I've ever reviewed." That is a tombstone. That is a career-ending sentence. The Humane Pin wasn't just a failure, it was an insult to our intelligence. But wait, while Humane was crashing and burning, there was another challenger, the Rabbit R1. Now, I admit, they got me with this one. The marketing was genius. They came out and said, "Hey, we aren't trying to replace your phone completely. We're just a companion." And the device looked awesome. It was designed by teenage engineering. It was this bright orange, retro-futuristic little square. It had a scroll wheel. It had a rotating camera eye. It looked like a gadget from a cool anime. And the price, $199. No subscription. We all thought, okay, Maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the fun AI toy we've been waiting for. We were wrong. We were so wrong. The Rabbit R1 launched, and it was arguably worse than the Humane Pin. Why? Because at least the Humane Pin tried to build its own operating system. The Rabbit R1 was revealed to be, wait for it, just a cheap Android app. Some savvy users did a little digging, and they found out that the entire Rabbit operating system was just a single APK file running on a super cheap, low-end Android chip. You could literally install the Rabbit software on a regular Google Pixel phone, and it worked better. They sold us a cheap, laggy plastic box to run an app that could have just been on our phones the whole time. And let's talk about the hardware. The scroll wheel that felt so satisfying in the videos. It barely worked. It was slippery and unresponsive. The lambda button you had to hold to talk. It had a delay that made you want to scream. But the biggest lie was the large action model. They promised this thing could book you an Uber, order you a pizza, or plan your vacation just by talking to it. In reality, it couldn't do any of that. The Uber connection failed half the time. The Spotify integration was broken. It was a glorified chopped wrapper that couldn't even remember your login details half the time. And the battery life. Oh my god, the battery life. This device has a tiny, low-res screen and does almost nothing, yet somehow, it died in 4 hours. How? How do you optimize a device so poorly that it dies by lunch, when it's just sitting in your pocket? The Rabbit R1 was a masterclass in marketing and a disaster in engineering. It was a toy sold as a tool. It was vaporware that they actually managed to ship. They took our money, gave us an orange paperweight, and hoped we wouldn't notice that it didn't actually do anything they promised in the keynote. So, what is the lesson here? What have we learned from the billion-dollar failures of the Humane Pin and the Rabbit R1? We learned that the smartphone is actually really good. Think about it. Your phone has a high-resolution OLED screen that is perfect for reading, watching, and seeing maps. It has a keyboard for when you need to be quiet. It has a microphone for when you want to talk. It has a battery that lasts all day. It has an app ecosystem with millions of tools that actually work. Silicon Valley tried to reinvent the wheel, but they gave us a square and told us it was the future. They tried to solve a problem that didn't exist because they were bored with the perfection of the smartphone. The truth is, AI is a feature, not a device. AI belongs inside your phone, not in a separate $700 plastic badge that sets your shirt on fire. Apple knows this. Google knows this. That's why they are just putting AI into the phones we already own. So, please, I am begging you, the next time a guy in a turtleneck walks onto a stage and tells you that screens are the past and asks you to buy a magic stone or a talking necklace, keep your wallet in your pocket. Do not pre-order the hype. Do not buy the beta. Let these billionaires beta test their own bad ideas. Our phones are fine. In fact, they are perfect. Long live the screen. If you want to keep your money safe from the next tech scam, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I watch these disasters so you don't have to pay for them. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.